content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's cracking, everybody, man? I'm GG, man. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. You know how it go. Before I get things started, I want to give a shout out to all the haters out there, man. Shout out to y'all, man. I know you're lurking. When you come in, man, can you please hit the like button, subscribe button, and the bell notification button so you can stay on top of what's going on here on the Green Gorilla's channel, man. And like I always do, I want to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel and then get into the business. So shout out to Dub Will, Mr. Good Dad, Dar, Third Coast X, Lamar Johnson, Rais Morji, Lee Ways, Roderick Jackson, Michael Ross, and 63rd Samurai. Big up. Big up to Ben Cannon, Kenton, Sherlin Woe, Passport OG, Brotherly Love, Devon Love Ridge, Ishmael Samad, The Watcher, Barnolas, Hostile Adept, Red Pill Revelator, and Laura Hamal. Big up. Big up to Kill the Game, Dr. Thunder, BGS Ibmore, Jason Hales, Charles Finney, Interesting Thought, Bimrock, Blacksword 404, Until I'm Not, Apex Prowler, and Naomi Gary. Big up. Big up to Jay Cleveland Green, The Toxic Masculinist, Pulpit 28, No Sleep, Broken Blade, Mr. King, Larry R, Seth Son, Afro Troop TV, Show Me in Spain Man. Big up. Big up to Seven Coast Dojo, Anthony Davis, I'm Just Jules, An Honest Look, Ricky Dawson, Stefan, Julius Ferguson, True 7360, Mr. Me Too, Call for President, and Gold Professor. Big up. Big up to AKs and Curtains, H-Town, Roguish to Billmonger, Adrian Thomas, Electrician 480, Binga, Cutting Up with the Jones, Zanco 1, D. Scott, Path Guy 74, and Pete Rock. Big up. Big up to Aaron Peters, Vincent Lindsay, Quiz the Poet, Black Wizard 80 OS, Jazz Tech, Shadow Observer, Troy Warren, Mrs. KP Bailey, Alan Wiley, The Face, and Life of Commerce. Big up. Big up AI Apostle, Timothy Blewett, Jeffrey Speed, Marvin Battle Jr., Adam, Ignatz Mouse, Brian Peaks, Black Uru Strikes, Dr. Tree 33, and Base X 77. Peace out. Big up to Brian McMurray, Karen S., Charles Rogers, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, Charles Gilmore, Greg, Barry Little, Mr. Valentino, Cameron 87, and Doc LaRock. Big up. Big up to Mark Swift, Odd Collar, Donald Watts, Coast Hotep, Old Soul Chief, Mr. Blue Collar, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, A Double, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalanja Collar, and W. Pure 1. Big up. Can't forget Forrest Windu, David Carroll, and Kevin Samuels, man. Also on my Patreon side, I want to give a shout out to Robert Wicks, J.E.K., Chris Flowers, Christopher Burton, Daxby, Jay Live, Rashawn Phillips, Keith Bass, Nick, Albert C., Dr. Ben Vincent, I'm the Light of My Father, Waffle Weave, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi Momal, and Asangwa. Big up to all y'all, man. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your support, and if you want to support the Green Gorilla channel on an ongoing basis, here's how you do it, and then I'll be back with what's going on. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla Channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, I'm back, man. I'm GG. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla Channel. It's a place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up and no chaser. So I brought Admiral Smoke here today, man. What's cracking with you, bro?
What's going on, fam? What's up with you, man?
Man, got a headache, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, shit. Okay, man. Well, hey, man. Well, I'm going to make this quick and greasy, man. And
no, you ain't got to make it so quick, you know. Take your time, man. You get through the... Man. I just got a headache, man. It just is what it is, you know what I'm saying? So, ain't no sweat off my back, though. You know, hey, you got to push through.
You got something coming through to fix it, a candygram? Or?
No, I ain't got no candygram right now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm just... I'm dealing with, I think I'm getting a sore throat, man. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, strep throat, some shit like that. I know it ain't no COVID type shit because I don't have any breathing impairments, but, you know, this shit's starting to bother me a little bit. So I might have to get some antibiotics or some shit. You know what I mean?
Well, I hope you go and get well. But nah, dog, get to it, man. The question is that...
Get closer to the mic if you can.
Okay. Yeah, my bad. So the question that I have, right, it's more of a question. So when we talk about Black America, and we're talking about, you know, the economic and political position that Black America's in,
yeah,
the only Black people that I hear that are happy with America in a sense are what you would deem Black conservatives. But the rest of Black America seems to have levels of dissatisfaction with the United States. And with their levels of dissatisfaction with the United States, there are things about their politics and how it operates that I don't understand, right? So now, for example, you know, when you talk about neoliberalism, right? And, you know, a lot of people in the space know that I am a conservative. And the funny part about this is that if you dial back the hands of time 50 years or so or more, there were a lot of conservatives that warned people about the ideas of neoliberalism or the consequences of it, right? So at a time, some of these people will even be in the far right talking about the conspiracy theory of New World Order, so to speak, right? So neoliberalism would, in a sense, fit that description when you're looking at the commodification of everything, right? So things that should be government or government services, being privatized, people losing jobs, limited access to cash, pretty much a lot of the things that you see, that are taking place now. I just wonder, like I said, for Black America, if you have this dissatisfaction with neoliberalism or in this system, I'm kind of confused as, well, one, why don't you tie your politics to Africa? Because at the end of the day, in all of our shows that you've heard me say it, historically speaking, since the conception of the United States, the invention of Black people themselves and what to do with them has always been a geopolitical topic. So if you're looking at what's going to move the needle, in a sense, for Black people when it comes to certain things, geopolitics is there. So from Sandog's perspective, right, if you want reparations, right, for Black people that would be on the left, my understanding would be is that you would currently tie your politics to Africa, right? Because America's future, or the future of the US dollar is dependent upon what our trade relationships will be with Africa, you know what I'm saying, in the future. So why are you having kind of like anti-pan-Africanist rhetoric when these are the people or the countries that you would need? Because for the rest of Black America who's dissatisfied with the United States, with the coming increase in the wealth gap that will make us a permanent underclass, as per Dr. Claude Anderson, if you don't get reparations, America is a sunk cost. So in economics, a sunk cost is money you can't get back. Okay, I invested in Sandog Tech, right? They went left when they should have made right, and the money is gone, right? So out.
So let me try to let me try to get the argument that you got going on here from the beginning, right? So okay, so the first step of the argument is, okay, you're a conservative, and most people who are like optimistic about what's going on in America primarily are conservatives. Okay,
correct.
And I guess the reason, because of that, I guess the reason is that they're doing well off financially. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I guess that's your sentiment, that's your argument, right? So if you're satisfied with what's going on in America, it's probably because you're materially rich. Okay, but the vast majority of the Black population is not as well off as they could be, provided that there wasn't this racial schema that existed here, okay, or whatever the case may be. So that being the case, and I guess these conservatives are dialed into what you consider to be neoliberalism, right?
Correct.
Okay, but you're saying that this is a new phenomenon that most people, don't understand or have insight into the fact that like there were conservatives who warned against neoliberalism from the beginning. Okay.
Yes.
And then you made the move from neoliberalism and its critics to Africa. Okay.
Yes.
And then you went from there to like why are you being critical of Africa? And you would think about like the futurity of the usefulness of the relationship that you can form by dealing with Africa, or at least, trying to, find out how you fit into neo-global politics in relation to race, resources, and the whole nine. I guess that's kind of like some of the shit you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate to you today, okay?
Okay.
Not that I'm, to some degree, I'm pan-Africanist myself, okay?
Yes.
But the first argument that's going to come up is they don't fuck with us. They don't like us at all. Like, Africans don't like us. They consider us to be niggas. Okay? So if they don't like us and they consider us to be niggas, we're in the same position in relation to white people in the United States with Africans. Like, they don't perceive us as anything other than like what white people perceive us as. So what usefulness are we going to be able to draw out of a relationship with people in nations on a continent that don't really like us or don't really want to partner or cooperate or collaborate with us in the first place?
What I would say is
I'm going to make you think today. But go ahead.
Okay, I'm with you. And what I would tell you is that in my workings, that is all a fallacy, right? So most African Americans are not in contact with African governments, or for the most part, African institutions, be it state or non-state actors, right? So in terms of how Africans feel about you politically or even economically, in terms of helping to develop an economy, most people really, that's not something that they know, right? So to meet some people on the ground, right? To meet some people on the ground who are like you somewhat in the job market and, and who are on the ground and sucking dick for pocket change, that's something very different than actually engaging people, on levels of government, policy, and business. And I would tell you that in my experience, especially with some of the organizations that I am a member of, is actually quite the opposite. There are a few African countries, right, that are interested in dealing with African Americans at much higher levels than what most of us would think, right? And again, some of them come out of ECOWAS. Some of them are members of the AU. Now, remember, some of these organizations may still have some of the same several countries, in common, right? And so there are quite a few entities who believe that part of us solving our problems from an African perspective is reaching out from the diaspora and pulling from the talent pool of the diaspora, both economically, financially, and with expert and and working with them in regards to their levels of education and expertise.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So here you got a comment. Oh, let me give a shout out to Michael Ross. Shout out to that brother, man. Appreciate the donation. So there's a comment here though, where this one guy's like saying that 60% of black men are in the middle class, and because of that, they're pretty much happy here, and so the other 40% aren't because they're convicted felons. What do you say to that? Like, I mean, my argument is like, okay, look, the reality is 1/3 of black men have had contact with the criminal justice system, but just because they have doesn't mean that they're, not in the middle class. I mean, that's asinine to assume that just because you've been to prison that you're not in the middle class at all or don't have a chance to be. It's patently false. Okay, but. So, in other words, though, I mean, this is the relevant part of Marcus's statement, though. Most, black people are pretty happy here. They're not living in squalor or poverty, and so they're good.
Okay.
So, like, why would they, think about forming relationships with people whom they consider to be foreign? And let me just say this, okay? So, I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? So don't don't think I'm just like trying to.
Yeah, it's not that I'll take personal. No.
Yeah. So, shout out to Mississippi Delta guy. I will. Let me give him a shout out right now, and give him some fanfare related to the donation. I really and truly appreciate it, my brother. Straight up. So let me get that going right fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because and the reason I'm saying all this is because I'm trying to be preemptive. In all of the critiques that are going to come. But shout out to Mississippi Delta guy. Okay, so here's the comment from Mississippi Delta guy, okay? Mm-hmm. He says, black people need to focus on group economics and stop giving political support without tangibles. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay. Also, pan-Africanism has not delivered anything to black Americans. We need to stop this romanticism about Africa. Just keep it about business and resources. So that's.
So let me respond to that. Okay. All right. So first and foremost, when you talk about group economics or building industry, right? Again, this is something that I said previously. America historically. So basically what my response is from is that as I listen across the manosphere, right, I hear dissatisfaction with you. So unless I'm listening to like Mr. Fantastic or Hoodservative or whatever, across the manosphere, what I hear is dissatisfaction with, with the United States, right? So again, I lived in places that were absolutely horrible, right? And there are millions of people that will gladly trade places with you, right? But this is not, so what I'm trying to do is that from my perspective, I'm trying to understand why the mainstream of Black American politics operates the way it does amidst its dissatisfaction. So let me kind of, and I'll get to my point, right? So when he says focusing on group economics, right? So now when you talk about history within the United States, from the slave codes to Jim Crow, right? To Jim Crow, which you just got out of, it has been physically impossible for you to have the safe space, the breathing space, right? Because you need safe territory and a breathing space in order to have economic independence and mobility. So if America is hostile to that, if you're living in a land where you're segregated, you're not recognized as a citizen, how are you going to get access to roads, to ports, and the things that facilitate trade? How is that even going to happen? So it's not an individual or sets of businesses that get people out of poverty, so to speak. You would have to control industry, right, on some type of scale in terms of getting out of poverty, right? So you would have to have some kind of industry that the world works and not that the world wants, and not necessarily this kind of obscure demographic of people, right? Now, another thing is this. When people talk about tangibles, a lot of the Africans are like, look, we're looking for people to work with. And, we're looking for people to work with that we can trust, that can help us get started. So at the end of the day, Africa, in a sense, is a frontier, right? So this whole idea of that, they got their shit together and and they have policies in place and they could just start offering you this, that, and the third. No, they are now, in a sense, starting to just organize, and they are just the same way the Black manosphere is kind of like the beginning of Black male self-determinism. That self-determinism now in Africa is something that's just starting to happen, right? So they themselves, they know that they want to develop, they know that they want to move forward, but how to do it, who to do it with, and all of these other things are questions that questions themselves that they're trying to answer.
So let me intervene really quickly.
Yeah.
Because he has more to say,
Yeah.
and I fuck with him because he supports me regularly, and and look, one thing I don't require on my channel, or from the men who watch my channel, I don't require uniformity, fidelity, or fealty. Okay, like all of you are grown men, I assume, or women who watch my material, and if I'm able to influence you in any way, that's great. If I'm able to inform you in any way, that's great. If you're entertained by the discourse that I have, beautiful. Okay, in whatever way you derive value, if you watch my channel and hate the things I say but are entertained by it, great. I mean, awesome, stupendous, marvelous, and wonderful. Okay, but one thing I don't require is fidelity to my viewpoints. Okay, the only thing I do demand is respect, and I don't require respectability. I mean, you don't have to use King's English or not refrain from cursing or anything, but you don't have to curse at me or name call me. That's all I'm saying, or accuse me of being something that I'm really actually not. You know what I'm saying? So as long as you state your opinion in a peaceable, respectable manner, I don't care what it is you say. Okay, you can disagree with everything I say, and that's fine, because nobody that is alive can be in perfect harmony or agreement with everybody else, or any, their wives, their mothers, their brothers, even their own selves, okay? Because your own viewpoints alter and change over time, at least if you're being reflective and you engage in evaluation about, your life. So having said all that, Mississippi Delta guy says Pan-Africanism is good if you want cultural exchanges and if you want to explore Africa. Yeah. But it is not a solution for Black Americans fight in America. Okay.
Yeah.
And
the last thing I have
but hold on. Okay, let me move forward some more because he's got more to say. He says Africans don't control their own economies. White supremacy is a global phenomenon.
So,
okay,
but
hold
but
on, because he's got a string of comments. Okay, he also says, "Sorry, you're babbling." So this I think to me is what he intended here. To me, this pan-Africanism business plan with timetable and stakeholders. No plan, just talking, just babble. Okay, and he says we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. So
okay. Well, the here's the thing, right? And the thing is that I take offense to the term babble, right? So in terms of I think serious because here's the argument is this, right? I haven't lived in America in 20 years, right? I'm former military, but I am corporate Africa and corporate Asia, and I engage in trade. I engage in it. So everything from satellites, communications, energy, the food that people put on the table when you go to the grocery store, to humanitarian aid, I have touched it. I've dealt with it. And so what I'm trying to share with you is a different perspective, right? All I'm trying to share is a different perspective. I may not be the most eloquent, of speakers, right? But I want to give you a different perspective because America is a bubble. Americans for the most part, know very little about geopolitics, international trade. The IMF, that's something that I deal with, right?
International Monetary Fund is the IMF, just in case you don't know. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure, look, Mississippi Delta guy doesn't smack me as a guy who's uninformed about economics. I'm pretty sure.
No, but I get it. But I'm not talking about uninformed, but what I'm saying is that I'm living it.
Right, I get it. So let people,
geopolitical events to you that are news are events in my life. It's not.
Sandog, pull back for a minute because I don't want you to get offended. Okay.
Yeah.
So just let people know what it is because you live in the United Arab Emirates at the current moment, correct?
Yes.
What do you do there for a living? Because you're the primary breadwinner for your family, correct?
Yes. So, okay.
What do you do there?
Okay. So now I'm kind of a jack of all trades, right? So ultimately, what I did was I started out in the defense and aerospace place. And then from defense and aerospace, I've ended up in communications. I've ended up in facilities management and infrastructure, right? So now, ultimately, what I do now is I do a combination of business development and consultancy for logistics and infrastructure and trade.
Now, when it pertains to when you say infrastructure, you mean road building, pipe building, pipeline building is what I mean when I say pipe.
So for infrastructure, road networks, road and movement networks. So for example, things like transportation, micro transportation, rail, airports, seaports. This is what I do.
Okay. So look, I'm a pan-Africanist sympathist, but I'm playing devil's advocate to you right now. Okay, so you got a brother in the chat who's just played he didn't play devil's advocate. He was being, somebody who says, well, yes. I don't know about that. And here's the thing, right? I got arguments against both of y'all. Okay, so this is what I would say to Mississippi Delta guy in relation to what he said in the comment about pooling resources together, right?
Yeah.
And here's my argument, right? I would say that black people don't know how to behave as a group. Now, and this is the problem in general. All of these arguments are arguments about how can we bond.
Thank you.
But I mean, look, here's the deal, right? We have problems bonding in America.
Thank you.
We have problems, but we have problems bonding in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
We have problems bonding in the Caribbean. We don't know how to bond. And one could argue that, do you really want me to get complex with this shit, or do you want me to kind of like, just
please, because you're helping me to articulate. This is my point, right? To your very point, right? So for the Black people who are dissatisfied, because again, I'm saying everything that I'm saying, and maybe I jumped ahead of myself, right? Because for the African Americans, right? Because everything that's coming out of my mouth at this point is for the African Americans who are dissatisfied with the United States. Why is the politics so disjointed? Why everything like I said, to your point. So I'm saying is that if Sandal was all of Black people collectively, right, I would be leaning on the current need to have a relationship with Africa to help facilitate reparations for whatever it is that I wanted to do here or in the diaspora. But from the part of Black America that is dissatisfied, in a sense, with the United States, it appears that it's all over the place. And literally that's probably what I should have opened up with, instead of jumping into what would Sandal do if he was the collective. But this is exactly what I'm getting at.
So there's a person who wants, before I drop the link, I want to make sure that you get all of your arguments out. So that way, like any discourse that takes place after I drop the link is discourse that occurs after you've completed your narrative, your argument, or have adumbrated whatever position it is that you want in full. But go ahead.
Okay.
So,
right.
but let me say this. I think that Black people, first of all, Black people aren't really actually Black to begin with. Now, I know that sounds fucked up to say. I know that's fucked up to say, okay? That Blackness is not a descendants of Africa's. That's not a identity formation that they developed themselves, okay? This is a reaction or a response to the fabrication of whiteness. Now, I'm not saying it's not useful, for political purposes at all, but I'm saying there is no, like, what does Black mean, man? Okay? Now, people in Africa, did they refer to themselves as Black? Fuck no. They refer to themselves as Dahomey, the Akan, the Yoruba. And so you get the picture, right? And so on and so forth. So the reason I say that it's difficult for Africans or Black people to bond is because the bonds in and of themselves, they're predicated upon a political ideology that Black folks that have been, have been thrust upon people who are considered to be Black to begin with. It's not something that developed naturally, as a response to, like, how do we conquer the world? It's a knee-jerk response to how do we deal with being conquered. You get what I'm saying? So, and then also, in China, like, there were certain religious revolutions and shit like that took place, dynasties and conquering, all over the continent of Asia. And let's face it, man, like, Asia, Europe, we know we're unified Europe, okay? Christianity, several wars, but Africa, it's never been through a process like that. You get what I'm saying? So one could argue, like, the diversity that people, like, say that would be ideal. Africa already had it. Like, there was no forced religious conversion or none of that shit. Like amongst all the people there, like people pretty much, like I'm not saying any conquering didn't happen there, but not of the kind that happened in Europe or in Asia. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so then the question is, okay, well, how do you get a group of people who have been deracinated? Like the better, I guess the better term would be people who have their memory wiped. Like you don't know, you have no, it's like that's why Malcolm X is called Malcolm X. Like, who was I? We lost our religion, our names, our culture, our God. Many of us, by the way, we actually even lost our minds or whatever the case may be, right? So we don't know who the fuck we are. And everybody's like searching for an identity, searching. And it's difficult for black people to find a way to see themselves through authentic eyes because we don't have any traces of authenticity. Everything we're doing is fucking, we're making the car while we're driving it. We're actually building the boat while we're at sea. And so, you know, like people are like, well, how do we deal with this? And then people have been split from geographical locations. Now, I do understand what tethers us together. I get it. You know, I understand, okay? But still, these are tactical problems, okay? Like, because I know niggas in Chicago that don't like each other, and they don't live 100 miles away from each other. Niggas in California, like, I don't like them niggas on 64th Street. We on 63rd. They don't like niggas that live a couple of blocks away from them. Mm-hmm. Light-skinned motherfuckers don't like dark-skinned motherfuckers. Men don't like women. Old don't like young. Now, this is a black issue. Okay? And there's one guy who said, what was this guy here that said, it was a smart comment, so I'm looking for it right now. He said something to the effect of, he said, we can't behave as a group because there's no unifying ideology. And that's the issue. Now, I will say this. Any call for unity to some people is perceived as a call for something that can't be. Now, I don't think that's actually accurate. Like, it's possible for the shit to occur if people make it happen. And just because something hasn't been done or has failed 99 times doesn't mean it can't succeed the 100th time. But then, one can ask the question, well, if it's failed so many times, is it useful as an endeavor on the 100th time, which is the time that might be successful? But who knows? That's all conjecture, okay? But one can argue there are norms that, one can use in order to try to make the case that, like, we need to bond. Because, I was watching, you ever see the Planet of the Apes?
Yeah.
And Caesar was like, why did you do this cookie? Well, he was talking to the orangutan or some shit like that. And the orangutan was like, why'd you give the cookies out? And Caesar was like, I'm trying to get these motherfuckers to unite. And then, he took one stick and then he snapped it. That's Caesar, right? He took the stick and he snapped it. Mm-hmm. And then he took he snapped it again and he had 3 sticks, right? And then he tried to break them, but it was more difficult to break the 3 sticks than it was to break the 1 stick, okay? And so he says, apes together are strong. By themselves, apes weak. And then I think something happened in the little habitat area they were in, and the apes start fighting each other, and then the orangutan was like, man, these niggas stupid. And he went about his business like, man, there's no hope for this shit. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? But the point is, the benefit from uniting would be that it would be more difficult to break you as a group. Now that would be like, a norm that you could utilize, or at least an argument that you could use to demonstrate that bonding, it would be beneficial, okay? But then the other problems, ensue when you start talking about bonding with people from other countries and shit like this, which I don't have a problem with personally. Look, dude, I have attended Africa conferences, man. Like I'm talking about with like faculty from universities, not just in America, but faculty members in African, at African universities. You know what I'm saying? And, having discussions, in dialogue with them about like, what can we do to improve the quality of the infrastructure of Africa in 2050? Like, what kind of political model should we be adopting? How can we throw off the yoke of Chinese and European control? What can we do in order to stem the tide, against, land erosion and shit? I mean, all kinds of questions, that they have. And I have participated with people from Africa, okay? Like the intelligentsia of Africa. And let me just say this. I don't know what they say when I'm not around. But when I'm in front of them, they ain't saying shit to me about me being a nigga and that, you don't belong here. I'm just saying that's been my personal experience, though. They could be saying anything behind my back. Don't know, okay? But all I know is that when I've been in front of them, in their presence, they've embraced me. You know what I'm saying? Now, I can't say every one of them, because, it's Negroes in America who have not embraced me and been like, man, fuck that nigga. So if an African does the same thing, I wouldn't be surprised, because I'm pretty sure they do that to each other. Okay?
Correct.
And let's not forget that, like, Africans sold other Africans into slavery. So, there is no romantic situation amongst human beings. We get that. I get it. I understand full well. Okay? But I do want to push back. If we're going to be in dialogue about this, we got to be, we got to foresee all of the issues and the problems related to it. Okay? Now, when you started to have this conversation, I didn't know it was going to take the path of pan-Africanism. I will say that. It's a surprising twist for today.
Well, because I'm talking, because here's my thing. When you talk about a black ideology, right, or a unifying ideology. So for me, right, as an African-American conservative, right, so coming across that thing, right, so if the rest of Black America have enough, I don't know, rhetoric or awareness or whatever to say, okay, Sandog, Larry Elder, Thomas Sowell, who else is out there, all of you guys are just a bunch of, all of you guys are just a bunch of coons, right? So for the most part, right, that's what they agree on. So that's what they agree on. So if they could manage to get together to agree on the fact that Sandog and Larry Elder are sellouts, how are they disjointed? That they don't have a unifying ideology, or at least on that side, on that side of Black America. There's not some form of a unifying ideology in terms of however it is that they need to move, right, to get out of this situation, that they see themselves in, right?
So before you say anything else, this is what I want. I want to do housekeeping really quickly, because a lot of people made some donations since this time, and I want to acknowledge it. And so the first thing I want to do before I skip Herb Saint is mention him. And he says, and shout out to him, by the way, and thank you for the donation. He says that the problem that he foresees with Africa is China having more influence on business practices, which we're seeing is damaging and predatory. And he says it's just a thought, okay? So he wanted to make sure that point was heard, okay? So shout out to Herb Saint. And then again, Mississippi Delta guy follows up with, he says, I agree. We Black Americans should be involved in international business, even in Africa. But for pan-Africanism to work, governments need to have policies, procedures, laws, plans, timelines, budgets, if they were serious. For your information, Cape Town, South Africa is great. Okay, so that's something.
But again, that's what I'm trying to say. So, for example, when I get on a plane to go to Nigeria, for example, right, and it's me and a bunch of people from Lebanon, right, and the Lebanese are doing extraordinarily well in Nigeria and certain parts of what you would deem to be Black Africa, and what I'm trying to tell you guys is that this is the frontier. So what's happening is the rules are being made now by the people who are coming in there now to help develop it or take it to wherever it's going to go.
So,
right.
So wait, but before I don't want you to answer all these questions just yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I still got to get through the list. Okay. Yeah, and there's some good questions, some legitimate questions. Okay. Mississippi Delta guy says, "Are you calling us apes?" Come on, you know I'm not gonna call us no. I call myself a gorilla, so not in a pejorative term like a white person would call a black person a gorilla, but like in the sense of strong, dominant, cooperative, an eloquent animal. You know what I mean? Like just a peaceful, noble animal. Okay. Also, there's a Typhoon, the Reaper. He says, ask Sandal how a limited number of Black Americans with no investment from the U.S. will compete against Chinese and Russians and influence African nations. Please do tell. Okay, and that's a legitimate question. Okay, and then before you move forward. And shout out to all of those. Let me put a bomb out there just for everybody who donated. So this is a clip. I want to play it. And then Sandog, you can follow up, okay? Mm-hmm. But I am going to play the clip. And the only reason I'm going to play the clip is because the norm built into the whole concept related to bonding, it's metaphorically played out in this clip. And yeah, the video is going to be demonetized by me showing it. Maybe not if I dispute it and say, well, it's part of a larger point I was trying to make, and it didn't really actually, it wasn't necessary for me to show the clip. It's not an integral part of the fucking, the stream. But I'm going to show it anyway, just to underscore the point that was being made in this movie, in this context. Okay, so I'm going to present, share the screen, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and here it is. Tell me if you hear it. Do you hear that? Did you hear that, Sandog?
Yeah, I hear it.
So I'm gonna stop this here, right? And I'm gonna move it to the point where he's in conversation with the orangutan, okay? And the only reason I'm gonna move forward is because they will flag if so much of a clip is played in succession, they will flag the stream, okay? It will happen, okay? So let me fast forward to where he leaves the enclosure or like the place where they're put in cells or whatever, or cages, and go to where there's the conversation that Caesar's having with this orangutan. And you see the end result, right? Like in the end, he's like, black people, can you imagine it? So it's like some black man sitting on the corner talking to, a group of people in New York like they do on corners, like trying to convince each other to be in communion and to be in unity with one another, right? And then, because Caesar knows that they won't be able to succeed in procuring any freedom for themselves if they are divided, okay? So he's like, if we stick together, we're stronger. And then, they get into a fight and the orangutan is like, these motherfuckers, these niggas stupid. It ain't happening. These niggas stupid as a motherfucker, So then the question is like, are we really that dumb? Like, are black people really that dumb? Or the descendants of Africa really that dumb to think that like we're gonna actually be able to get through this without developing some form of unity? But then the problem is, how do you even enforce unity? Like in America, I don't see any possibility of enforcing any kind of unity here at all. And the reason I say that is because this is a liberal country. And I'm not talking about liberals in relation to conservatives. I'm talking about liberal in terms of a country that extols the values and the norms associated with liberty, negative liberty. So it's a classical liberal country founded on the social contract tradition. How do you get a group of people that need to come together in order to resist the rigors of white supremacy, racism, whatever you want to say, or economic degradation and exploitation, right? How do you get a group of people who ought to unite when like the very value that is instilled and beat over their heads from the time that they're young is, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. I'm free. You can't tell me what to do. Like, I mean, if this was, the Middle East prior to, the rise of Muhammad, if this was medieval Europe before the Magna Carta, like where there was no, postulation that there's something called freedom and all of this, then okay, well, maybe you could use religion as a unifying force to tie people together. But how do you tie together people who have no memory of who they are, who don't like each other, who, I mean, for lack of better terms, who, really aren't that politically astute and aware? Like, how do you do it?
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, I get Chukwu Igwe's point. He says I can't unite with people who call me a tether and call themselves the N-word. But
that's what I'm saying. So
I'm pretty sure that people in South Africa call each other Kaffir and stuff like that. But I mean, all I know is, and I want to write a book about this actually, okay. and I want to talk about
yes.
The mindset, even Africans like who've been colonialized, like have the mindset of niggas. Like, I mean, I know it sounds bad, but it's the double consciousness, right, that exists, and that like a person like Du Bois talks about. Like, I know you might not like the idea of Du Bois because he was for civil rights and all of this, as opposed to Booker T. Washington and, his idea about thrift in the industry. I don't want to get into all of that here. But what I do want to say is that if it is the case that you've been deracinated, you've been erased in terms of memory, cultural memory, how do you react to it? How do you respond? Now, one thing that pan-Africanism is, one could argue, it's a norm, a value system that says, well, let's try to recall that which has been lost. Like, like trying to Humpty Dumpty, put all the pieces back together again, okay? Now, I mean, there's some people who say, well, it's useless, it won't work. I mean, it is what it is. But some people, I'm pretty sure, some people stayed in Europe when the Americans came. When the Europeans left Europe and went to the New World, some people stayed in Europe and was like, fuck it, I ain't going there. Okay? And, like some ventured out and said, fuck it, I'm going to go and, see if there's some other shit happening. Because I'm not really, satisfied here. And one could argue, like, and this is in response to the other comment that was made about, like, black people in the middle class, right? My viewpoint on the social economic landscape of America is that the middle class has been shrinking, like, since the fucking 60s anyway. Like, so, like, the middle class is not really actually the middle class anymore because of the financialization of the market, inflation, stagnation in wages. So the idea, the inflation rate has not improved, okay, for the average American. And so one could argue, like, what does it really actually mean to be middle class today? Like, so many things that Americans took for granted in the 60s and shit doesn't exist anymore, like college education. Like, my mother went to college for relatively free. Like, these people, man, who are like in their 70s now, man, they didn't pay shit to go to college, man. Absolutely fucking nothing, man. Now it's a requirement for you to go to college in order to be able to get a decent job. Now you got to go into the military or something like that, right? But now you gotta damn sure have a degree. Then this AI shit about to hit in and kick in, and what you gonna do then? So, I mean, like, my whole thing is, bro, like, hey, black folks, man, one could argue, man, we're kind of like in trouble here, man. He says, well, and check this out. Marcus says the GDP for South Africa is 419 billion. Population is 59 million. African Americans have 1.6 trillion population. I mean, can't have that much of a population, but he's talking about GDP, right? Per 49 million. Feel free to go backwards. But, you got to ask yourself the question, though, bro. Like, look. You got to ask yourself the question.
The thing is this.
Like, I mean, I'm processing this. Like, you got to ask yourself the question. Who has America doesn't have any resources, bro. I mean, and what little what are the primary resources of America, right? Fucking oil.
Coal.
What else? What else is here, man, that could be used in the future? Where are the primary resources being drawn for the West to make computers and all of this shit? It ain't from America. It's from fucking Africa. They got all the resources. Now, China's exploiting the resources. Europe is exploiting the resources. Eventually, Africa will learn how to, to control their own resources. Hopefully. But goddamn, I mean, that's where the resources are. And you can fit in. I mean, like, if you learn the language, you could at least fake it and fit in if you wanted to. But you have to be trained to be able to do that. You can't just, do it at like 50 years old or some shit like that. You got to start training young people like, okay, we can develop links from one landmass to the next. But black kids, man, we're not even being educated enough to think beyond our own neighborhoods and shit like that. So, the point is, who's controlling the resources? African Americans damn sure ain't controlling them. We know that. You know what I mean? It's just a thought, man. But Sand Dog, go ahead, bro. But wait a minute. Let me shout out some people who hit me up on the Cash App. I want to shout out True and SL. Thank y'all for the donations, man. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Appreciate that. But go ahead, Sand.
Okay. Look, the way that I see freedom is autonomy. So again, so let me explain. Remember, the last show we had a discussion about independence, right? So African Americans, in and of themselves, outside of Haiti, for example, have not fought a war for their independence or their autonomy, right? You go into a civil rights movement. The purpose of protest does not facilitate independence. Protest facilitates compromise, right? So all across the manosphere, right? When I hear people talk about Black America, I don't hear any level of satisfaction. I don't hear any level of optimism. Like I said, again, unless you are a conservative, right? So the thing is, back to my point. So your dissatisfaction, from what I could gather, comes from the fact that maybe there's a misunderstanding about what freedom actually is, right? So you may be looking at white America and saying that they have privilege, they can, they have, this economic mobility, and they can do this and they can do that, and we can't, so to speak, right? However, when they were in Europe, right, there were a lot of things that they could not do. Many of them will go west or to other colonies, right? And then eventually they would have a war or for independence with whatever nation or space that they came from in order to have what? Autonomy in their environment. So if I'm one of the Burgesses and and all of these guys, man, and I'm up here busting my tail and I'm flipping all this money just to see it go back on a boat to King George, right? I may feel some kind of way or have my series of issues, right? And so I'm coming to Sandal is coming to a Black America, right? That from what I hear, at least in the manosphere, right, which is a small sample size, I hear all this dissatisfaction. Okay, there are, institutional racism. And again, I understand that institutional racism exists, right? Again, in economics, the first thing you learn are the factors of production: land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. Those are the things that you need to build wealth. Now, with finance, there's something called, you guys heard me say before, it's called the time value of money, right? So if Black people, for the most part, weren't allowed to participate in America until the 70s or the 80s, and yikes, there's the crack era, right? How are you going to get an income or ways of making money that accumulate over time to create generational wealth, right? So a good ass job is not going to do it, right? Shout out to Mr. Z. Your cousin that owns 20 pair of Jordans is not that's not the reason why you're poor. There's something, I, as a conservative, am agreeing with you that there's something larger at play here. So if you are in a space that denies you land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and now even fucking family, right? So you have that, and so you have that. Okay, and again, protest does not facilitate freedom; it is compromise, right? So what I'm saying, so now maybe I'll jump ahead with the pan-Africanist bit and everything else. So if what you want is autonomy, generational wealth, the complete freedom to terraform an environment and determine what those outcomes will be, my question to you will be, how does it happen in America when historically from Reconstruction, where you got hung from a goddamn tree from holding political office, all the way to the building of I-95, fucking debt peonage, the Homestead Act, getting fucked out of the New Deal. You tell me how it's done.
That's a lot to say right there. I mean, look. I've always been the one to say, look, let me put it this way. The question is, this is the primary question, whether people who are defined as black or perceived as black can ever be accepted or integrated into the social body of the United States. So, I mean, the question is it possible for you to be absorbed into the social body of the United States? That's an important question. I mean, the question is, it's a realistic, I think it's a valid question to ask.
But that's what I'm saying. But the thing is,
Sandal, before we can even move to your solution, which to you is a solution. I mean, the solution is, I think your answer to the question is no. You can't get it. And it's not because you haven't tried to do it. We already know. See, this is the thing that fucks me up, right? And let me just say this, okay? And look at Chukwe says this is his answer. He says he would rather have money than acceptance.
Thank you, because freedom and acceptance are different. This is what I'm trying to say. Freedom and acceptance are very different things. So when you get into, that's what I'm trying to say. So when you get into integration, for example, these are things that'll make, this is designed to make you palatable or acceptable to American society. So when I hear, let's say, black people on the left get upset with Candace Owens, right? The thing is that once you handed your children over to this system called integration, they're being integrated into an American perspective. But
Sandal, let me intervene, man, because I get what you're saying. I understand. So I just want to take this statement right here. I would rather be paid than accepted. I would rather have resources than to be embraced by a group of people, right? Now, let me just say this. In a nation, okay, if there's a situation in which poor people are going to be helped, they're going to only be helped to the extent to which they are perceived as part of the social body. Do you get what I'm saying? Let me rephrase that, okay? So it's really simple. Black people are typically disproportionately poor. Not saying all black people are poor, but black people are disproportionately poor precisely because they have not been absorbed into the social body and have been perceived as people worthy of relief or aid. And I will say this, if it's the case, let me just go out on a limb and just be real about this. In the United States, black people do not have enough money to buy political influence. We just don't have enough, bro. That's just, I hope that you understand that. I hope that you get that. You got people like Claude Anderson who've been saying this. Black people in the United States, as a whole, even with all the wealthy, uber wealthy motherfuckers out here, the uber wealthy, the LeBron James, the Dr. Dre's, the Jay-Z's and Beyonce's, the Emmett Smiths, the Tiger Woods, collectively still, in this country, black folks have less than 1/2 of 1% of the total wealth of the country, man. That's just a fact. You don't have buying power. And unfortunately, the financialization of the market, which has been, been kicking in since the 60s, is such that the middle class is shrinking. There are articles written about this. Like if you want me to demonstrate it, if you want me to show it to you, I can show it to you. Is the middle class shrinking in America? Okay.
Yes.
And I mean, it's just this is not like advanced information. It's not. This is not like the most advanced information. Is the middle class shrinking? As is often cited, the share of adults who live in middle class households is shrinking. Now 50% of the population falls in this group as of 2021, down from 61% 50 years earlier, according to the Pew. Okay? Is the middle class disappearing? The number of people actually in the middle class has dwindled. And then to say you're in the middle class actually amidst inflation is really a misnomer. Because you might have like what's considered to be middle class status related to everybody else in the country. But if it's the case that the wealthiest people in the country have more wealth amassed than the entirety of the fucking population, then it's a problem. If the top 1% or 2% have more than everybody else combined, then it really isn't saying much about the middle class. Okay, so I'm saying that even if we don't attend to a racial problem in the United States, even if we don't, think that something ought to be done related to race in the United States, one could at least make the case that something needs to be done related to economic justice and distributive justice in the United States.
And that's why. And if you don't get reparations, you're fucked, right? that again, and that's what I said in the beginning, right? About being a permanent underclass. So, from what Sandog has seen and experienced, what I understand about the world in terms of finance, economics, trade, etc. So, for Black America, if you cannot use the fact that America needs Africa to ensure another century of influence, right? Or the use of the dollar, so to speak. If you can't tie your politics to that to get what you need out of it, I don't know how else you get reparations and avoid becoming a permanent underclass when there's another shift in wealth. I don't know how else that you do it.
So right. let me just say this, okay? So let me say this, right? I think that, and I know I'm going to draw, like a lot of dissent from saying this, but I think that Black people have been too mired in identity politics. That's just my opinion. I think like we've been too mired in identity politics. And there won't be any rewards that come from it. Like if you think you remember that what did Biggie Smalls say in the 10 Crack Commandments, where he said, I forget which rule it was, but he said, all that credit, debt it. You think a crackhead paying you back, man, forget it. You remember that line?
Yeah, because they gonna want their money rain, hail, sleet, or snow. And if you don't got the clientele, you better say hell no. Facts.
But the thing is, bro, who the fuck is going? Man, reparations are not coming. I don't perceive it, right? I mean, here and there you might see a gesture or government, like in one part of the country to do something like that. But the vast overhaul and a transfer of wealth just to Black folks, I don't see happening, bro. In America, man. Now, and the reason I say it is because, and white people like to play the game today like they're not racist or whatever the case may be. I'm like, man, I'm not listening to what you're saying. I'm watching what you're doing. I don't care what you say. You can say, well, I'm not racist, or I judge everyone by the content of their character. Okay, well, if that's the case, why you only agglomerate around white people? Are only white people the ones that have good character? Like character only, attaches or affixes itself to white folks? I'm not trying to be ignorant by saying this, but I'm just saying, like, let's be authentic here. Identity politics was not created by black people or people who are considered to be black. We didn't create identity politics. We were forced to play the identity politics game. Like the original identity politics creators and fabricators were who? And I know there's a white guy here, Mr. G. Who created identity politics initially? Who did it? Especially related to race. Now you can start talking about religion and identity. You can talk about like ethnicity and identity. But when you talk about race, who are the authors of racial identity politics on the world stage? I guarantee you it's not black folks. Black people didn't write volumes about how they were the superior race. Like Blumenbach or Immanuel Kant or George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel or David Hume. They did that. You had to own that. Y'all started the identity politics. Segregation is identity politics. The black codes are identity politics. So the civil rights is, to some degree, identity politics in reaction to it. Now, do I think the left is going a little bit too far? I think so. But I think the left is fucked up now, primarily because they're not attending to economic politics at all. They don't care about economic politics because you have an elite class of gay people, black people, and Latino people and all of this who are tokens, and they are able to use race as a means by which to, improve their own lot while saying fuck everybody else. It just is what it is. So, like, for people to respond to race and to make race an issue, they're only making it an issue because of the fucking protracted work and the intellectual and political investment that white people made into it to begin with. So, now you got white guys who come out the woodworks, well, that's racist. Like, wait a fucking minute, dude. Why are you opening your pink lips to talk about racism? Why? Or identity politics, any of it. Like, I don't understand. Now you get to, pretend that like everything is about color blindness, and I'm like, bro, stop the chicanery. I'm not willing to go that far with it. But I do understand that some white people are struggling. This is why I say more than likely it'll be more useful in this country if you decide to stay and you're arguing in behalf of what's going to be the most beneficial for black folks. You're probably going to have to make an argument. You're going to have to use dog whistle politics. You're going to have to talk about what's going to improve black people's lives without mentioning black people.
Thank you. But that's what I'm trying to say. When I first came to the space, I got torched for that. This is what I'm saying, right? So there are guys in the space that I talk to, like the whole concept of white supremacy, it makes their skin crawl. Because again, what did I say? You're not fighting a war for your freedom. You are protesting. So when you're protesting, when you're protesting, you're negotiating. You're negotiating a new compromise, right?
What I'm not trying to do is to create some like weird coalition, like a BIPOC coalition. That's not. All I'm saying is, look.
That's not what I'm getting at, Gigi.
I know you're not. I'm addressing somebody in the chat.
Yeah. Oh.
But go ahead.
Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. Again, as somebody who's living on the outside, right? I am hearing your dissatisfaction, but I'm just sharing with you freedom as I've seen it and as I've experienced it and as I've understood it, right? So everything that people of European descent have in America, right? They got on boats, they came there, and they fought the wilderness and whatever it is, enslaved us and whatever it is that they needed to do to ensure their economic survival and ultimately thriving. So you and I covered the cornerstone speech of the Confederacy, right? And the cornerstone speech of the Confederacy was that, yo, white supremacy, according to the Confederacy, is the cornerstone of what will be the American value system. So if white supremacy is the cornerstone of the American value system and slavery or indenture is my natural position in nature, right? If you're living on a landmass where that has been the ideology, I'm trying to understand, right? I'm trying. So as someone who is, quote, think about it. Look at me in a sense of, remember,
fam. This what you. Let me put it in simple words. This is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, all Sand Dog is saying is this. I'm gonna put it in dummy terms so that everybody can understand this shit, so we can move to the next point. All Sand Dog is saying is, this is his game, man. This is his court. Like, this is his arena. He set up the rules for himself. He set up all the places where the defenses are, all the advantages, like where the blind spots are. He knows all of those spaces. The laws, he made all this up to benefit himself. That's what he did. Okay? Now, if you want to run some shit and have some autonomy and freedom and terraform and be the boss, you're going to have to go elsewhere. You can't do it here. It's not going to happen here. That's like saying you a Kappa and you're going to go to the Q groove and then you're going to take the motherfucker over and be the star of that show. You're not going to be the star of an Omega show being a Kappa. You're not going to be the center of attention in that motherfucker unless you got gold boots getting stumped all over your forehead. And I'm pretty sure if you got an Omega in a Kappa set trying to take over and doing some unruly, ignorant shit, it's a whole bunch of canes that's going to come down on his head.
Correct.
So at the end of the day, he's saying, look, bro, you're not going to be the top dog in this motherfucker. You are not going to be the nigga in this bitch. You're not going to run shit here. You ain't going to be the man in this motherfucker. If you want to be the man, you got to go somewhere else and set up shop somewhere else. This block is already consolidated. This territory, there's a flag standing on it, and that's it. I mean, like, I'm putting it in dummy terms so motherfuckers can understand it and get it to where there's no, like, intellectual gymnastics that have to be made. This is their cell block. This is their crack spot. Okay? You get it? You can't sell rocks here. You can't, this is their hostro. You can't fuck with they bitches. You can't set up your pimp in here with his hoes.
Come on, man.
Unless, of course, you're able to physically take his shit from him.
Oh.
Now, if you can't physically take his shit from him, now we talking about like the most militarily powerful and, like politically astute nation among, the most politically astute countries in the world, in world history. So, like, I mean, you can't run this bitch. First of all, you don't have the numbers to run it. Just think about if this was a prison and you're outnumbered, you the Latin kings, and they're the motherfucking Aryans. You make up 13% of the population of the prison. They make up 60% of the population of the prison. But you gonna run the prison? And they people, the guards, the warden, the judges, the police, all that shit. But you about to run that jail cell or that prison and everything, all the fucking illicit activity that goes on in it. And you 13% of the population of the prison. How? So all he's saying is if you want to run some shit, you got to think about going outside of the context of this motherfucker. All I'm saying is he's offering an alternative because you can't run this bitch. Now he's also saying, okay, you can find a nook and a cranny in this motherfucker where you might find a way to get along and to go along and, you know, to do something, but you ain't gonna be the top dog, and who is gonna be comfortable living underneath somebody else's roof and shit? You in their house. You in that shit. This is it's their shit ideologically, financially, territorially, all that. And this is okay. So look, he says, why not just take over the parts we make up? And it's cool for the white boy you're cool to pop up. I'm just saying what's real. I don't care if a white person's president or not. And I ain't saying you gotta leave, but I'm just saying, you know, like this is just the reality. So just somebody white here ain't really a problem to me, because I'll tell any white people I work with or anything, I tell them the same thing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I have no shame talking about these issues in front of white folks. I just don't. But at the end of the day, you know, all I'm saying is you can't, like, can you imagine thinking that you're actually running the prison when you're allowed to only, at 13%, you're allowed a section, but you can't run the whole thing, and anytime the motherfuckers feel like you gotta pay a tax, they gonna make you pay a tax.
Facts.
They gonna make you pay a tax. They gonna say, okay, look, you Negroes are in this prison, you know we're letting you breathe our fucking air, guess what? You gotta pay your taxes, and the taxes ain't gonna be cheap.
Facts.
Now, I mean, you know, we're 40 million strong in this bitch. It's a fact. White people's numbers are dwindling. That's a fact, too. But, I mean, you know, I've always thought, and it might be a fucked up thought for me to even think this way, but, man, like, I believe white people will they will blow this fucking country up before they allow people they consider to be minorities to take control of it and to have, you know, access to all of the military might and the wealth and the, you know, the institutions of this country. They'll be like, fuck it. It's time they'll scorch the earth.
Rage quit.
Before they give it up. Like, oh no. Because they perceive themselves as white. Now, I mean, to me, and look, let me just say this. I told Sandog the other day, and this is my real thought. Okay? No disrespect. Look, I love being black. Real talk. All I'm saying is, man, my deepest thoughts are that all of humankind, man, is interconnected. We're all interrelated. I think it's a scientific fact. We already know that we all share genetic ancestry, whether we be European, Asian, whatever the case may be. We're all interconnected and interrelated. But because we like to analyze, divide, and separate, instead of synthesize, unite, and look towards each other's collective interests, all we do is create war, and we're like the virus of like the reason for which the Matrix was created was because of us. Or like the machines in Terminator. It's because we're like the viruses. We don't know how to chill out. All we do is create enmity, division, and despair wherever the fuck we go. Now we should be perceiving each other as brothers. And women should be perceiving us as their brothers, and we should be perceiving them as our sisters. We should be. But everywhere you look, there's division and analyzation and breaking things into this component parts. And I'm different than you. You're different than me. I'm better than you. And we got one planet. We only live one life. And not alone with it that. But much of the shit we get mired in is superficial bullshit. But only thing I'm trying to say is but we can't get past that. It seems like we can't do it. And since we can't do it, well, you know, like, who wants to be in the bottom position? Like, who wants to be the motherfucker in the jail cell washing another motherfucker's drawers and shit in the socks in the toilet? Who wants to be the bottom bitch, man? So the question then is, okay, if you know this is not your shit, you're not the king of this motherfucker, why do you, I mean, this is the question he's asking. I'm not saying that it's, you know, like what he is articulating is the absolute solution. I mean, there's different solutions for different people predicated upon what their own value systems are. Got it. Get it. Okay? But the question he's asking is, well, if you feel like you don't have a place, look somewhere else. You got options. That's what the passport bros doing, right? In terms of women, they saying, okay, well, fuck it. American chicks ain't fucking with us. Let's go overseas and deal with some people who treat us a little better. Why? You ain't the only fish in the sea. But why just apply that concept to dating and women? I mean, and then let me just say this. I know this is going to piss people off. But instead of thinking about women in general, what about thinking about concepts and ideas that you created in this space and applying them to other things instead for just women? Why does everything have to be centered around women? Like, why just go to Africa for women? Or go to Brazil for women? Why just go? Because one could argue, let's just be frank about this. When white boys came to America, they weren't like, let's go there because all of these bitches over here. They weren't like saying, okay, well, let's go here because all of these ladies going to be here. Let's go to America, the new world. And there's a whole bunch of bitches there. And I know what I'm saying is pejorative. I know it's derogatory, but and I'm not, look, I love women, man. I don't hate them. But I mean, some of the shit they doing is fucked up. Some of the shit we do is fucked up. But the whole point is we've been hyper-focused on what we do wrong and we haven't been paying any attention to what they do wrong at all. But at the end of the day, all I'm saying is, dude, why is everything about what the fuck chicks doing, man? Motherfuckers got channels based around chicks and what they doing. And I don't mind talking about them because it's part of life. You're going to talk about them. You know, like you can't live with them, can't live without them. I get it, okay. But goddamn, motherfuckers talking about going to countries and shit just for women. We can go anywhere in the world if we want to. And do anything we want to. I just, you know, all I know is, man, I had one guy who told me a long time ago, used to be a professor at Chicago State, and he was telling me that, you know, like once you leave America, even if you go to Europe, man, they treat you better. Not to say that there's no racism there, but the kind of violent racism that existed in America, man, you probably won't find it in Europe. They don't, like, it's no strange secret that, like, the American soldiers were treated better in Europe when they were fighting than when they came back home. They was getting white pussy and all that. Then they come home, they can't drink out of a white water fountain. Like, wait a minute. Something ain't right about this picture here. I just got through killing motherfuckers to liberate Europe, but I can't liberate myself? But at the end of the day, you know, look, man, one can argue, you know, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, man. And motherfuckers here trying to squeeze all this blood out of this turnip. And look, America's great, though. There is opportunity here for some people. If you can freak it and manipulate the system, there's ways to come up in America. And let's not forget, this is my devil's advocate again, America is materially rich, though. It is a materially rich place. You ain't got to worry about malaria in this motherfucker. You know what I mean? I mean, hey, you can go to Walmart, get you some Takis, get you some motherfucking chicken wings, 15, you know, like 30 or 40 a box. Go to the movies, go to White Castle, Whataburger, even if you're poor. So a lot of people just don't care about even being accepted in anything. They just like, they are fine with subsisting. But to understand why, I mean, like, I would have to go into a long spiel about how America perceives the citizen and what they think the citizen ought to have in terms of power and participation in politics. Because this is a country that's based upon technocracy, man. It's a bunch of technocrats and bureaucrats and elites that believe that they should be running shit. Not like everybody having a say and being in a position of power. Not everybody's gonna be a leader. Like maybe some black men are like, fuck it, I don't have to be the alpha, even though I say I'm the alpha. I don't have to be the alpha. I'm cool with being, you know, like, not in the way, but, you know, kind of out of the way, just, you know, keeping my nose down and doing what I need to do to subsist. Might not have much, but like, who's expecting much? Like you said before, man, you don't look, at the end of the day, man, motherfuckers is looking for the money, the pussy, the mic, and they straight, bro. Giving niggas some Jordans, some PlayStation, a cell phone, some cable television, the internet, so he can jack off or some shit like that. Motherfuckers is good.
Facts.
Motherfuckers ain't trying to rule the world. Motherfuckers ain't trying to be pinky in the brain in this bitch. Motherfuckers ain't trying to conquer the world. Motherfuckers just trying to like get by, just to get by, just to get by. Some people are happy with that. Now, I'm not, look, at the end of the day, all I'm saying is whatever it is you want to do, there's an option for you. And like, you don't have to be tethered. I know a lot of people use the word tether in this space, but you are not connected to the U.S. to such an extent that you can't move elsewhere in the world. And even if you come back, and this is the primary place that you call home, you can still leave a motherfucker every now and then. You don't have to stay in this bitch. You can go see other things. Sometimes you need a difference in venue so you can have a difference in attitude, man. Just a difference in feeling and like the whole vibe and the mood. But again, or like I'm saying the same thing. Like you can't. If there was a scene from DC Cab, man, and the Grady was the one who was telling the cat. Let me see if I can find it. It's a short clip. And let me see if I can find that shit, bro. Because it was the dopest shit I heard at that time in my life. Don't let your dick run your life. Here it is. It's just some simple shit, bro. I'm gonna play it. It's not really loud, but because it's just not loud at all. But consider it, man. I forget the name of the guy who plays Grady. It's just simple, man.
But here's the thing, man. Even on the anecdotal tip, shout out to Chukwu and all the brothers that's out there, right? First and foremost, Sandog is ADOS with a Nigerian wife, right? So what people have to understand is African Americans have a leg up on most people globally because we live in the HQ. A lot of Nigerians are not even educated on colonialism, fam. Like, so uh, 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 education of now is starting to come into play now, and that's why they're becoming more conscious, right? But in regards to overall Nigerian history, especially pre-colonial, a lot of my relatives through marriage was learning it from me. So for example, within my family, I'm ADOS, right? We are Yoruba, Fulani, Hausa, Mende, because we have people from Sierra Leone, Nupe, right? Nupe, and these, like, I just named 5 or 6 different groups, and this is all the people that are in my family through marriage and other bonds, right? So, so when you're talking about our ability, like what I'm saying, to get along or not, right? There has to be an olive branch. There has to be a leap of faith, and there has to be a genuine concern. So one of the things that made it very easy for my wife and I to get married was because, again, I was a pan-Africanist, right? And I was aware of Nigeria's history, both pre-colonial, colonial times, and up to present, right? And so when I met my relatives across the board of these different ethnic groups that I told you about, the fact that I knew of their ethnic groups and their history, right? And the history of their ethnic groups, right? People threw their arms up, right? In open arms. Because what you have to remember is whether you're in America or Nigeria or whatever, right? Nobody's going to educate you to unite with the people that are on the other side. Right. So when I showed my relatives, when I showed my Igbo, I'm sorry, that's the group, the other group that we have. When I showed my Igbo and Yoruba relatives, people in Brazil who were still doing the traditional religions, it blew their minds. They had no idea. They had no idea that was happening. So you have to also respect the fact that from both sides, although you've met, some assholes here and there on each side, whether it's ADOS, or wherever other Black people are coming from, we know very little about each other. Walk up to any African American and ask them if they know who Toussaint Louverture is. They don't know, right? You get somebody from Nigeria or from Haiti and say, "Hey, fam, who was Adam Clayton Powell?" They're not going to be able to tell you because we're not educated about each other on that scale. So for us to learn about each other across the diaspora is something that will facilitate unity or desire for it.
So let me stop you here and say this. If there's anybody who wants to say something, I'm gonna give you the opportunity. We got 15 minutes in which you can actually come up and say it. But I'm about to break off. I got a sore throat, man. I probably need to go to a fucking doctor tomorrow and figure out.
As you should. You need to. One time I had strep throat and I ignored it. And when I went to the doctor, my tonsil had swollen up to the point where they had to drain it.
Oh man.
Yeah, fam. Stuck a needle in it and drained it and drained out. Said it was about to pop.
Oh fuck.
Yeah. So not immediately.
Damn. Yeah, well, hey man, you don't get me all nervous and shit, man. God damn. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go clock on in tomorrow, man. Check out what's going on. You know what I'm saying? But big up to all y'all, man. If anybody wants to come up and make a comment or weigh in, you can. If you don't, that's fine. Shout out to Electrician 480. Appreciate the donation. So, you know, the only thing I can say is, man, you know, it is, you know, it's an option. You know, it's an option, man. You know, if you desire, you know what I mean? There are other, you know, there are other things that you could do. So, you know, I'm not here. Look, I tell you before, I'll tell you again. I'm not your sensei. I'm not your pussy whisperer. I'm not your preacher. I'm not your pimp. I'm not your game coach. I'm just somebody having a conversation, man. That's it. At the end of the day, you get to make up your own mind, and you get to, you know, define how you're going to live your life, and, you know, you get to define the kind of decisions that you're going to make because you're a grown-ass man. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
You can do whatever it is you want to do. You know, it's just a conversation. It's not something that you have to hinge, you know, all of your choices on.
Yeah.
You can do whatever it is you desire to do on your own terms, man. Nobody here is going to tell you what you like. How can an individual on the internet tell you what to fucking do?
No.
I'm not saying that aren't some people gullible enough to do what people who are at a distance tell them to do, but I mean, like, bro, come on, man. I'm a content creator, man. I'm not like your professor. Like, I am a professor, but not in a professional capacity with you. You're not taking a course. I haven't given you a syllabus. You're not going to get a mark that is going to go on an official record that determines your academic competency. I'm having a conversation with you. It is what it is. So, having said all that, man, I'm about to drink some orange juice. I know that's going to help a little bit.
Yeah, though, but I'll give my closing remarks, man, and let you get on about it. But, you know, again, man, just like Gigi helped me to articulate, and this was because my question is like I said, to the majority of Black America who kind of reside on this social construct, you know what I'm saying, you know, again, called the left, so to speak. That's just my question, right? That's kind of like my question again. I understand institutional racism. I'm not denying that. And then I also understand, you know, part of the sham that comes with, you know what I'm saying, with neoliberalism. And so the reason why I call it the left is because it appears, at least for me, that you represent the overall disposition of Black America. And so if Black America's disposition has this particular level of dissatisfaction, maybe it's time to kind of look at things from a different perspective, especially geopolitical perspectives, because again, if you look at your entire history, the creation of Black and what to do with it has always been a geopolitical issue. So again, like what Green Gorilla said, we live in an environment where there are many right answers and wrong answers all working simultaneously, right? And for people who are smart and organized enough, they're able to synchronize these things together, for their benefit. So again, it's just a question, that I put out because I've heard, Mr. Z's dialogue on it. And if Mr. Z gets a chance to hear this, or whatever, I just wonder what his stance will be, regarding the things that I would see as solutions, to this, to this particular problem. And the last thing I want to say is in regards to unity, right? And I'm going to shut up and we'll go. I meet tons of people from Uganda, right? And whenever I meet someone from Uganda, I go, "Hey, Pharaoh." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, you're at least according to this book, right? This is where the pharaohs come from." And they're like, "What do you mean?" And so I have a copy of Going Forth by Day and Night, which some people call the Book of the Dead, right? And it says, We, the Egyptians, come to where the god Hapi dwells at the foothills of the Nile, at the splitting of the mountains of the moon. So geographically, being a Ugandan, they understand what I mean by splitting of the mountains of the moon. But hearing that text out of going by forth and day and night, it's the first time many of them heard it. And they're like, holy shit, there's a connection between Uganda and ancient Egypt? I had no idea. So I just want you to be mindful that there are Hotep black dudes sitting on a corner of New York City and LA that know far more about Africa than Africa knows about itself, right? And so the reason why African Americans are quintessential is because you are the only black people on earth that are indigenous to the first world. You are the wealthiest and the most educated globally. So if you don't think that Africa doesn't have an interest in reaching out to you as a resource, that's bunk. I'm done. I'm quiet. See you next week, Gigi. Inshallah.
For sure, man. Thank you, man, for proposing the show.
Yeah.
And let me just say this, because, I think a lot of times, when you talk about like an ideal like pan-Africanism, the reflex from somebody who's American is going to be, well, now you asking for us to pay homage to them Africans and shit, And to some degree, I think that is true. But you have to also be cognizant of this, that pan-Africanism is not just an ideology that requires a one-sided allegiance or one-sided kind of, gesture of goodwill. It's a requirement for people in Africa as well. It's like they don't get a pass, or I'm African, so I don't have to, like I'm already in Africa, so pan-Africanism just applies to me. No, it don't. It requires you as a norm to unify and uplift people of all people of African descent. So it goes just beyond an African identity, and it includes all the African diasporas worldwide. Mm-hmm. So it's not just this, like this fealty, like that a ADOS person is supposed to pay to an African. No, that's not what it is. It's not that. And I would not submit to something like that where I just got to romanticize and pay fealty to a group of people who are like saying, fuck me. If it's fuck me, it's fuck you. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? But if you say, okay, let's find a way to bridge and bond, okay, well, let's do it then. But like, if it's like, if you don't show a gesture of good faith, I'm not going to rock with you. I don't care who you are. White, black, red, brown, whatever.
Again, this is fact. But the other people that go in there, and like I said, the other people that go in there and do business, right, they have fine print stipulations, right, rewards and consequences, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not telling ADOS again not to do that. That again, you would need to do such to go in there. That's what I'm saying. It's not utopian. Matter of fact, Gigi, how about this? The next show that I would like to do with you is on Anglo-Saxon history. I want to talk about how the United Kingdom became the United Kingdom. Since we're under this thing on unity and how people believe you need a mutual consensus to pull some shit off, let's talk about the organization of the United Kingdom, which facilitated the world's first global empire. And once we examine that history, let's see if they all did this through mutual consensus, or between the Saxons, the Scots, the Welsh, and the Irish, some people got dragged by their ponytails and kilts, kicking and screaming.
Yeah, let's look at it then. Shit, I'm game for it, man. I love history, so
Yeah. So like
also, man, like, look, I've been doing pre-recorded videos, and I'm going to continue to do those pre-recorded videos. I like doing them, but God, man, it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to do those. And when I do them, I try to do them in such a way that they can be accepted by a universal audience, meaning that people of any age can see the videos, and there won't be a great deal of political ideology present in them just, you know, a presentation of facts, or if there is an argument that I'm making, you know, that I'm leaning towards, I will, you know, reveal it in the context of the video. But if you like the videos that are pre-recorded, please make sure you like them and that you share them. Okay, please. And then also, I'm looking for suggestions on what to do as well, because I want to make sure that whatever videos I do is going to resonate with the audience that I have. So please give me some insight as to what you would like to see. Leave some comments or email me in the videos that I have, like, could you do this next? Can you do that next? And if you find it excellent, please share it. So having said all that, man, I wish you peace and hair grease. I will be back tomorrow, sore throat and all, because I got some shit I want to say. I want to talk about building. I want to have a conversation about, you know, the building argument. You're not building anything. You're not a builder. Okay. I want to talk about that. I definitely would like to have a conversation about that. So having said that, man, I wish you all a peaceful night and a great day tomorrow. And hopefully, God willing, man, I will go to the doctor or the clinic or wherever the case may be. I'll go see somebody and I'll get some antibiotics going or some shit and start treating my throat. So, and I got that. I saw that joke, Marcus, saying that I ate some bad pussy. I saw that, man. I saw that shit. Okay. But anyway, man, look, I will holler at you, man. Y'all be good. Peace.